Original characters, widely abbreviated to the term OCs, are a study of exploration. Exploration of the self, honing in your skills as creators, and exploration of potential friendships, especially if you are part of communities that like to roleplay with their creations. Many see OCs as power fantasies, becoming the confident self they wish they could be. Others see them as ways of working through trauma, their characters essentially being extensions of their own flaws. Original characters are a reflection of the world, good and bad, our inner and outer lives. I strongly believe reality affects fiction, and confronting ideas in fiction can help their creators explore aspects of themselves. One such possibility, their sexuality. And that leads us to our main topic of the day, OC pride, in every sense of the word. As a member of the queer community, I'm sure it surprises no one to know I tend to intertwine queer existence with my stories and characters. They say write what you know and, well, I never stopped. With it being Pride Month, I wanted to make a video discussing some of my characters and where they fall within the community. I figured it seemed safer to make a video discussing what is canonical within my worlds, rather than make a video about shipping where companies can easily argue, "They are not like you, filthy heathens! Buy our shirts at Pride!" But we're not here to complain. We're here to celebrate. So let's get started. This is where I probably admit the fact that this video was gonna be two different sets of pictures originally. I was gonna do these guys that you see on the screen here, as well as characters from my other series called Insert Evil Laugh Here. But after taking 10 hours of footage of just this picture and then scaling it down to, what, like 30-something minutes, I realized that an hour-long video was gonna be like way too much. Way too much for you guys. So, I don't know, sometime in the future I might tackle the other characters I was talking about. But for now, we have this, which we will get into talking about. Big Bad, a detective story, is a child-friendly film noir as detective story about well, as it says, the Big Bad, or the Big Bad Wolf. And to make it out as simple as I can, think of it as a reimagining of fairy tales set through a more modern lens and pretty much poking fun of detective stories as a whole, especially the ones that you would see from the 40s. Like, there's just a certain atmosphere to them that I just think ends up being funny when you have a unreliable narrator, such as the Big Bad Wolf here, otherwise known as Norman. Well, not here as in on the screen, because that's Felix. You'll learn about him in a moment. The series is written by my wife Mooney and I, and it was definitely something that was a lot of fun to work on. Not only does it play with the detective genre, but it's highly influenced by our love of cartoons, and especially stuff that we grew up with, like Darkwing Duck. And it's also very much inspired by a lot of children's books that I read growing up, like the Bailey's School Kids, which would be pretty much a Monster of the Week genre. And also, I want to say Lewis Carroll's work as a whole, especially his latter work with Through the Looking Glass, where he brought in a lot of nursery rhymes into the lore of the story. And I was very much inspired by that to do the same, where you just take all the fairy tales from around the world and mash it together into some sort of logical canon, I suppose I'd say. I know in particular, one aspect that ended up inspiring this story was years ago. My nephew would watch this show, I think it was on Disney Junior, that it was about Goldilocks and the bear from the Three Little Bears. The Three Bears or whatever. Where they were friends and then they lived in like this like neighborhood that was all the fairy tale creatures and stuff like that. And in particular, what ended up like making me interested in that show at all was one day I ended up hearing Jim Cummings on the screen and looked up and saw a wolf character who pretty much acted like a more immature version of Darkwing Duck. And then thinking along those lines, everything just started falling into place, and I was like, oh wifey, I have this idea of what if there was a detective story centered around a wolf, big bad wolf character, where his stories are about him being the hero and how people have misconstrued them, and the character will have a personality very similar to Darkwing Duck and stuff like that. And that idea stuck with me for some time, but it wasn't until maybe a year ago where we actually sat down and started writing it together. And I'm very happy for that, because we ended up having a lot of fun with it. That said, this is where I get into talking about who the big bad wolf is and who his faithful companion is. Big Bad Wolf, also known as Norman D. Wolf. Big Bad is a name that he likes to call himself because he thinks that's like his street name. Like, yes, everyone fears the Big Bad Wolf. It's like, no one knows you. What are you talking about? But yeah, he's very much thinks he's hot shot, but really he's just a dork, just kind of fumbling his way through lucky situations. Which that is partly inspired by this idea of, I like to think as a child, he probably helped a witch cross the street and then like, oh, I shall grant you with a wonderful gift of good luck, and then I'm just imagining child Norman doing something to instantly piss her off, probably going like, oh, that's a crappy gift. Like, after all that help, that's what you give me? And then she made it so that he has incredible luck, but he also has unfortunate situations happening to him all the time. You know, very much cartoon logic. But yeah, he is a character who, he's trying to be somebody right now. He's trying to go through life, trying to go through cases and get respect and try to gather a clientele, I want to say. And meanwhile, he lives with his, I'm going to say best friend, but I also want to say probably only friend, Felix Fox. And Felix is a rich guy whose family has a shoe company. And so pretty much he hasn't ever had to really work or stress out or anything. And they have their own, like, apartment. Apartment. And he pretty much pays for everything. Norman doesn't know it, but Felix is pretty much his sugar daddy. Like, Felix, by this point, I think, is convinced that they've been in a relationship for years. Meanwhile, on Norman's end, it's very much a case of like, wow, what a great guy he is. Of course he's gonna pay for everything. Why wouldn't he? He's the one with the money. And like, he sure is a clingy guy, when really it's Felix, like, thinking they're in love. But yeah, so like, in the series, since this is for younger children, that aspect is like hinted at, and I don't think it will be until the very end that it's flat out stated that that Felix has thought they were in a relationship all this time, while Norman just slowly develops feelings over the series. Again, it's not actually about them falling in love. It is really much a detective adventure story. It just has that kind of skirting underneath it all. But speaking of love and whatnot, as I hinted earlier on in the video, this is about sexuality, because I'm drawing a picture of them at a Pride event. And this is where I start out by saying that Felix, he is very much a loud and proud gay man. He's never been hidden in the closet. He's pretty much always been a guy that's just stood out and kind of had his way, I suppose. That is to say, he's the type of guy where he's nice, but if you can't put up with him, then he doesn't really want you around. It's like, oh, you can't handle all this? Well, bye. And with that, we have Norman, on the other hand, who's a lot more... Well, let's just say he doesn't actually think about romance or anything. His focus is always on, like, the next case. Gotta get out there, gotta get his feet wet, figure out something, get the adventure and all that jazz. But I will say, as one of the authors, I do see him as being gray romantic. As someone who doesn't usually experience such things, but he can, and he does. And like I said, that would be something that kind of happens throughout the series, of him just learning to appreciate Felix, and that, wow, maybe I shouldn't be an asshole to my best / only friend. What do you know? There's a cicada on my window right now. This has nothing to do with anything. It's just, it's very important for you to know. They've been flying around like crazy, let me tell you. Yeah, I'm keeping this in. That said, I'd like to end off the rest of this video on a note of just, reading one of the chapters of the story that Mooney and I wrote, so that you guys can kind of get and understand the personality of these guys. The Case of the False Filched Faucet Blame. Chapter 5. Home sweet home, a picturesque apartment nestled in the center of Mushroom Valley. Not that stopping to smell the roses and admire the view was in my schedule that day. I raced inside and up the stairs to my abode with one thing on my mind. I must have startled Felix, my long-standing roommate, as I burst through the door, if the sound he made was any indication. He followed me as I dashed off to my bedroom closet, digging through a box I was certain held what I was looking for. I could feel him hovering, and then I heard him as he stood in the doorway. "Norman, what has gotten into you? Running through here as if your tail was on fire." "No time for chit-chat, Felix. There's a criminal on the loose, and the cops don't seem keen on doing anything about it, so I suppose it's up to me. Say, have you seen my tranquilizer gun anywhere?" The tranquilizer gun?" I threw a look over my shoulder, my foxy companion holding Miss Misty, his overweight cat that I was equal parts feline as it was fur. Felix stroked the cat's head as the miserable wretch of an animal glared in my direction. My eyes momentarily watched the swishing of its tail before putting my attention on the other miserable wretch in the room. Felix had started talking once more. "Why in Mother Goose's name do you need that? You hardly know how to shoot that blasted thing anyhow." "My shooting's fine, thank you very much." It was at this moment my frustration was nearing its peak. I threw another box from my closet, spilling my childhood bottle cap collection to the floor. You couldn't blame me for being upset after the day I had, after all, as I gripped my teeth and cried out, "Now are you going to help me or not? People's lives are in danger. Felix frowned, giving his typical bit of lip as he left my bedroom. Despite the distance, I could still hear him mumble out "My evening's the one in danger." Really, it's like everyone liked to forget the ears. All the better to hear a no-good louse of a roommate's unwanted commentary. Right as I had given up on him, I was startled when Felix returned once more. But, more importantly, he returned with my gun. "Hey! There it is!" I snatched it away, admiring its beautiful barrel, as Felix twisted his lip in a mild sneer. It was in our writing desk, next to the letter opener. "We have a letter opener?" I paused. "Wait, we have a writing desk? Since when?" Apparently those weren't the right questions, as this perturbed my persnickety pal. "Since Mother gave it to us. It's been in the entryway for years." I was busy looking in my sock drawer where I kept my darts, trying to ignore the man's ramblings. "Sometimes I don't think you even pay attention to a single word I say." "That's nice," I responded, loading the gun. "Say hi to your mother for me the next time she's on the phone, would ya?" I spun the barrel for good measure, satisfied, even as I could vaguely process the whine of some sort of complaint. This too went ignored, as I instead grinned at my best friend. "Say, Felix, how about you go and make us some turkey on rye? I should probably eat something before I head back to the woods anyhow." Felix did not return my good cheer. He was still frowning. It turned up at the corner now. A crooked frown was almost worse, as I never liked those. Back to the woods? The entire woods? Do you even know where the criminal lives? I felt my smile slip. Was he really doing this now? He lives in the woods. I heard myself. I wish I hadn't. I sounded so unsure of myself. Where had my bravado gone so suddenly? Felix said nothing, but his cocked eyebrows said plenty, and it was practically deafening. Then he sighed and rolled his eyes. Did he have to do that? The rolling of his eyes thing? He knows I hate that. "I'll go make us some lunch," he said finally, and he left me standing in my room, feeling strangely defeated. Had I been too hasty? My intuition told me I might need a better plan. My grumbling stomach told me I needed that turkey on rye. Lunch had ultimately been the proper route to take, as brain food was just what I needed. Chewing and thinking, I began to brainstorm the next plan of attack. Whilst wolfing down my sandwich, I stopped to address the fox sitting across from me. "You know, Felix, you might have been right about the whole 'that's a lot of ground to cover' angle." "A shocker." I glared. Felix took a drink of his tea. "Hey, this is a difficult thing for me to admit, you know." Just because I was desperate didn't mean I was going to stand for his sass. Mostly because I was sitting, but that's besides the point. "If you have a suggestion, spit it out, would ya?" "Well..." Oh no, I knew that look. Setting down his tea, folding his hands on the table with that unnaturally straight spine of his accompanying it, Felix Fox began to lecture. "If I was you, I wouldn't be getting my nose into any of this anyhow. I don't know why you just can't let the police do their job, Norman. Take up Daddy's offer to work at the factory instead." Ugh, it always came to that, didn't it? "Norman, get a real job to help pay the bills. Norman, Daddy wants you to embarrass yourself and be a happy cobbler elf." And of course, the one that made me shiver from pure dread. "Norman, Mother wants us to visit for the holidays." There it was, the shiver. Felix, meanwhile, was ignorant to my internal complaints, as he had continued to speak. "But I've known you long enough to know you won't listen to my advice. So, because I don't want to identify your body on some sort of autopsy table, I'm going to give you a suggestion. Why not ask around? You always go on and on about the underbelly of the town and how the most superstitious lot sells each other out all the time. So, start buying. Might be easier to get a lead if you find something useful, rather than running around like a hen with meteor phobia." While my roommate was busy rambling about birds with mental conditions, I was busy coming up with a plan of my own. "Felix, a brilliant plan comes to me. It's so simple. I don't know why I didn't think of it before." I chuckled. "I should go ask around, look for someone who might know a thing or two that'll lead me straight to that dastardly wolf." "That is literally what I just said," Felix retorted, unimpressed. No time to discuss technicalities, Felix. My plan is hatching. Yes, I'll ask around. But around where? Aha! I've got it! I paused, giving my roommate ample time to ask me what it was I had. He did not. He just stared at me. Sometimes I get the feeling he and I operate on two completely different wavelengths. The ugly duckling. That confounding constable from earlier mentioned Larry Lemonade has friends there. Friends willing to cover for him. At cost, no doubt. Lunch was through, and I had work to do. My drive had returned. I was ready to solve this case. I hopped from my seat and declared I'd be paying a visit to the seediest bar in town. I didn't get far when I heard Felix muttering to himself. Not even gonna ask if I might want to come along? No, thank you for lunch, Felix. Care to join me, get out of the house for a change? People always complained about the old ball and chain, but never had I heard a tale of a clingy recluse roommate. I picked up my hat from the table, timing it so I placed it on my head as I rolled my eyes at his trivial complaint. Felix, I said through grit teeth. For some unfathomable reason, I am getting the impression you wish to join me on the case. At this, Felix waved it off. Oh no, I wouldn't want to be a bother, Norman. He was bothering me now, but I knew if I'd said any of this, he would just throw his gangly limbs onto his fainting couch, his phrase, not mine, and sulk the rest of the day like some prissy prima donna. And a sulking roommate was somehow more trouble than a bothersome one. A sulking roommate decided they were too grief-stricken to make dinner after all. I'd been spoiled. I couldn't go back to the miserable before times of lukewarm noodle cups, not when I could be feasting on a full 4-course meal. So, it was with this in mind I bare the aggravation of playing along. No, not a bother whatsoever, pal. I'm sure your cordial cooperation can coerce something out of these guys. Fed up with puttering about, I was already heading for the door to leave. Hurry up, Felix. There's no time to waste. The game's afoot. Which was to say, we had to walk all the way there. And with the story over, we are nearing the end of the video. I wanted to say thank you for everyone who came and stopped by to watch, and also to everyone who allowed me to use their artwork for the beginning of the video. Like I said earlier, I hope everybody is doing okay, and I hope that you guys are staying safe this month. All the love and joy out there in the world for you guys. Do take care. Goodbye. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end and watching my videos. If you would like to check out more, feel free to click here and, over here. But until then, stay safe. Snark out!